Hello everyone, and welcome back to our series, Learning Buddhism, Understanding Correctly, Practicing Correctly, based on the teachings of Gautama Buddha. Lesson 6, The Path to the End of Suffering. In the previous lesson, we discovered something very important. Suffering is not fixed. It can change, it can become lighter, and it can even come to an end. We also began to see that whether suffering continues or not depends greatly on whether we keep feeding it. When we keep replaying a situation, imagining more, worrying more, or blaming more, suffering continues. A problem may last only a few minutes, yet we can carry the pain for days, not because the event is still happening, but because the mind keeps returning to it. We remember what happened, we imagine what might happen, we blame others, we blame ourselves, and each time we do that, we add more fuel to the fire of suffering. On the other hand, when we see clearly and stop feeding it, suffering gradually becomes lighter. This naturally leads to an important question. If suffering can end, how do we get there? The answer is not found in a miracle, blind belief, or simply wishing for things to be different. The Buddha did not teach people to escape reality, nor did he teach that faith alone is enough. Instead, he pointed to a very practical path, learning to understand and observe ourselves. It sounds simple, but very few people actually do it. Most of us spend more time observing other people than observing our own minds. We easily notice the mistakes of others, but rarely see our own reactions. We can tell when someone else is angry, but often fail to notice anger arising within ourselves. We can see attachment in others, yet overlook our own attachments. That is why the path to the end of suffering begins by turning inward. It begins by looking at what is happening in our own minds. In daily life, most of us live on autopilot. When something pleasant happens, we feel happy. When something unpleasant happens, we feel upset. When we are praised, we enjoy it. When we are criticized, we feel hurt or angry. These reactions happen all day long. Many of them happen so quickly that we are not even aware of them. When we do not understand what is happening, we react automatically. We push away what we dislike, we cling to what we like, we chase after what we want, we avoid what we fear. These habits are deeply rooted in the mind. Because they happen so often, we think they are normal and never stop to examine them. But these very reactions are the source of much of our suffering. When we want everything to go our way, we suffer. When life does not match our expectations, we suffer. When something we love changes or disappears, we suffer. When we cannot avoid something unpleasant, we suffer. If you look carefully, you'll see that much of our suffering does not come from the situation itself. It comes from the mind's reaction to what is happening. Many times, we think other people are causing our suffering. We think circumstances are causing our suffering. But a large part of suffering comes from how we respond to what is happening. When we begin to observe, everything starts to slow down. We can see this is discomfort, this is worry, this is fear, this is desire, this is frustration, this is a reaction happening within me. The moment we see it clearly, we are no longer completely carried away by it. We begin to realize that emotions are simply emotions. Thoughts are simply thoughts. They arise and they pass away. Some thoughts seem extremely important in the morning, yet a few days later they no longer matter. Some emotions feel as though they will last forever, yet they eventually fade. When we see this changing nature, we stop identifying so strongly with what is happening in the mind. This is the beginning of the path, seeing clearly what is taking place within ourselves. As our observation becomes stronger, something very important begins to appear. A small gap between emotion and reaction. Before, an emotion would arise and we would react immediately. Someone says something critical and anger appears. Someone else succeeds and jealousy appears. Something goes wrong and anxiety takes over. Everything happens automatically. But now there is a brief moment of awareness. You notice, I'm feeling irritated. I'm feeling worried. I'm feeling angry. I'm wanting things to go my way. This small gap may be small, but it is extremely important, because this is where freedom begins. Before, emotions pulled us around like a puppet on strings. Now we begin to see emotions instead of being completely controlled by them. Within that small gap, we have a choice. We no longer react purely out of habit or instinct. We can choose to remain silent instead of speaking hurtful words. We can choose to listen instead of arguing. We can choose to observe instead of jumping to conclusions. We can choose to pause and breathe instead of letting emotions take control. As this gap grows stronger, we begin to realize something profound. Not every emotion needs to be followed. Not every thought needs to be believed. Not every impulse needs to become an action. Many problems in life arise because we react too quickly. When we learn to pause and observe, many difficulties naturally become smaller. As a result, greed becomes weaker, anger becomes weaker, and delusion gradually fades because we are seeing more clearly. This is the path that the Buddha pointed to, understanding what is happening in the body and mind so that we are no longer completely controlled by them. This path does not require you to become perfect overnight. No one changes everything in a single day. What matters is becoming a little more aware each day, noticing a little earlier each day, reacting a little less automatically each day. These small changes may seem insignificant, but over time they create a profound transformation. So, to summarize, the path to the end of suffering does not begin with anything mysterious or far away. It begins with observing ourselves. When we observe clearly, we create a gap between emotion and reaction, and that gap prevents us from being completely swept away by our habits. Little by little, the mind becomes clearer, calmer, and freer. Now for today's practice.
Hello everyone. Here are some practical tips you can apply in your daily life. The next time you notice a strong emotion, such as irritation, frustration, anxiety, or even sadness, don't rush to do anything. And don't try to suppress it, fight with it, or push it away. Many of us immediately react when an emotion arises. We want to get rid of it, distract ourselves, or act on it right away. But for this practice, try something different. Simply pause for a moment and acknowledge, this is an emotion. You don't have to analyze it. You don't have to explain why it is there. Just recognize that an emotion is present. Then gently bring your attention to the body. Notice what is happening physically. Is there tension in your shoulders, tightness in your chest, heat in your face, restlessness in your stomach? Perhaps your breathing has become faster. Perhaps your jaw is clenched, or maybe your hands feel tense. There's no need to change anything. Just notice. Spend a few moments observing these sensations without judging them. Don't label them as good or bad. Don't try to fix them. Don't try to make them disappear. Simply allow yourself to be aware of what is happening right now. As you continue observing, you may begin to notice something interesting. The emotion is not as solid as it first appeared. It changes from moment to moment. Sometimes it becomes stronger. Sometimes it becomes weaker. Sometimes it shifts into a completely different feeling. You may be surprised to discover that strong emotions often begin to lose their power the moment they are seen clearly. This doesn't mean they disappear immediately, but they no longer control you in the same way. By observing in this way, the emotion no longer completely takes over your mind. Instead of being swept away by it, you begin to become aware of it. You begin to stand back and look at it. And when you can look at it, you are no longer completely identified with it. You start to realize, this is anger, but I am not anger. This is anxiety, but it is only a passing experience. This understanding creates a small but important space in the mind, and within that space, wisdom can begin to grow. You become less reactive, more patient, more aware, and a little more free. That is the first step on the path to the end of suffering, not through theory, not through belief alone, but through your own direct experience. A few moments of mindful observation can teach us more than hours of thinking about our problems. So for today, keep it simple. Whenever a strong emotion appears, pause, observe, and learn from it. For day 6, that is enough. Thank you for learning Buddhism with me, and I'll see you again in the next lesson.